Hey, welcome back to another great episode of hashtag Screw the W2. I certainly hope you've been enjoying this series as I bring on additional business owners, entrepreneurs, and real estate investors that I've networked with, the last 8 years or so, give or take. Just a little backstory before we get started. Brandon Neese and I first met up in person in Indianapolis about 4 years ago. Let me actually think back. Yeah, a little over 4 years ago, May of 2018, for a real estate investor conference, and networked with a lot of people there. We had stayed in touch ever since then. Both of us ended up leaving our W-2 jobs in 2019 within 3 months of each other. And Brandon actually joins us right now from a flip or a fix and flip that he's completing. So if there's a little echoing in the noise, that is why he wants to definitely brag about this wonderful flip that he's done. So with that, Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Appreciate you having me. Yeah, we really hit it off at Indianapolis. It seems honestly like that was longer than 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, but I do love that we talked about financial freedom, and here we are together. And congrats to you on the podcast and YouTube. All your stuff has really taken off. Uh, yeah, so I do stand in a flip. I'm in the kitchen. There are no chairs or stools, so I'm just standing at the breakfast bar. Um, I am really proud of this property. Um, it's a bit of an atypical story, but real quick. So I bought this house to live in and did live in it while I was renovating it. And I quickly
Oh.
learned it's 2,000 square feet. It's too big for one person.
Mm.
So it's just me. So then I had used it as a corporate rental, and did really well. Then with the market, the appreciation we've seen, I'm here in central Pennsylvania. It's really perfect for the sweet spot of a first or second family home. It's a 4 bed, 2.5 bath, 2,000 square feet, completely renovated, hardwoods, granite, stainless steel, new roof, central air. It's a really beautiful house, and we listed it at 299,
Wow.
and it went up. Yeah, it's this is an affordable market, and so it went under contract at 320 2
Jeez.
days later. Yeah, so even with interest rates being up, we still got a $20,000 over asking offer. We have a zero inspection.
Nice.
We have a appraisal gap, a very large appraisal gap, which I was happy to see, and um, a buyer we feel very confident of because my agent had spoken to their lender. So a very aggressive close of 29 days. The appraisal was last week, so we're waiting for that to come back.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm really proud of this place. Fixing and flipping is not my main revenue stream. It's rental properties. It's long-term buy and hold. But someone's gonna, the buyer's gonna get a really beautiful house, and um, the appreciation we've seen nationwide over the market is certainly going to help on the margin on this place.
Perfect. Yeah. So, yeah. And I know we had to reschedule this interview a couple of times. And it's like, yeah, six-figure profit on a property probably trumps a podcast interview. I completely understand.
Yeah, and again, I'll say some of that is me being good, and some of it's being the market pumping up these numbers. So it's a
Yeah.
bit of both. But I do appreciate your patience, and I'm happy to be here and talk to you today.
Yeah, no worries. So now, obviously, we've kept in touch ever since 2018 when we were in Indianapolis, and both of us were, shall we say, kind of on the corporate ladder at some point. And I think both of us shared numerous stories that we weren't all that happy with our, W-2 jobs, if you will. But maybe for my audience, if you could just take us back into time, what was your previous W-2 job, and what was it like? What was a typical day?
Yeah, so it's probably a bit atypical. I work in commercial real estate. So I used residential real estate to leave commercial real estate.
Ah, interesting.
Um, yeah, which I don't think many people do that. But I started off. I had been in commercial real estate for about 15 years. I started off as a commercial property manager, so basically managing office buildings, flex space, a bit of retail. third party stuff, doing it
Okay.
for other owners. Then I moved on as an asset manager for working directly for an owner of a REIT, a real estate investment trust with shopping centers along the East Coast.
Hmm.
And I started to see the retail brick and mortar turn. And as that happened, the industrial wave, specifically in the East Coast and Pennsylvania, blew up. So your
Okay.
Amazons, your PetSmarts, all these 3PLs that were doing a ton of online business, but had to have shipping hubs holding product.
Yep.
It really blew up in, I guess they call it the I-95 corridor, maybe like from, I don't know, Boston to Virginia, something like that. But we were right in the path of that growth. So I transitioned from an asset manager to a general manager managing a large industrial portfolio for third party owner based in Singapore with a Chicago presence. And it was just a crazy wave, you know.
Okay.
Industrial is still going strong, but I would say on a typical basis, you know, commercial property management is much different than what people think of residential property management, and it's um, all hands on deck and a bunch of irons in the fire. So it's everything from uh, tenant relations, fit out work, project management work, maintenance and upkeep of the property. It's collections, rent, taxes, insurance, CAM. You know, in commercial real estate, you have common area maintenance. The acronym is CAM. And monthly tenants are paying into towards that, which would be, you know, in East Coast, it's snow removal, it's landscaping, it's
Mhm.
line striping, it's all these things that go into the common area maintenance of a warehouse or a property. Then at the end of the year, you need to reconcile what they paid in versus what the actual expenses were. So there's collections. Um, so every day was different, but it was fast paced and working for a third party. You know, you're kind of at their mercy on the responsibilities they add and put on your plate.
Yep. Interesting. So, all right. Now, obviously, you and I have talked back and forth for a number of years, but what was maybe like the one moment you can think of, or the main moment that, you had obviously a high paying job, but it was fast paced and a lot of irons in the fire, like you said. But what was the moment that you realized either this isn't for me, or I got to get out of here, or I need to start planning my exit?
Sure, and I could totally see people having that moment, right? That moment where the light shines down. For me, it was kind of like death by a million paper cuts,
Okay.
right? And I can speak to it briefly. I would say one thing that stuck out with me from certainly later in my career until the day I left was incompetent, ineffective, clueless senior leadership.
I didn't know you worked at my old job.
Yeah, a common theme here, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost like people in positions based off like length of service or tenure, not
Hmm.
actual skill sets or problem solving or bringing any real value to the table.
Yeah.
That was always very challenging for me, having a supervisor that had no clue how to do the job of the people they were managing.
Again, I didn't know you worked at my old job.
So while that wasn't one moment, I would say that was a common theme that just continued to rub me the wrong way.
Mm,
And you know, I don't. I'm sure there's probably some similarities here for you, but it was a position that if you cared about your performance and you cared about the product that you delivered, eventually you were going to get burned out
yep.
because it was just too much with too little for too long.
Hmm.
And I just knew, you know, my quality of life was pretty brutal. The job came home with me nights and weekends. I
Yep.
just knew it wasn't sustainable. I mean, it's sustainable, but at what cost to your health and
Yep.
your outlook? So I know that's kind of very generic, but it was leadership and just knowing this was never going to end. It was never going to let up,
Hmm.
and just not wanting that you know, that corporate 40, 50 years of just Groundhog Day,
Yep.
really.
No, it makes sense. And yeah, I could definitely relate. And like I said, no, we shared numerous stories of incompetent leadership. And my favorite was always the good old nepotism where, it's a childhood buddy, grew up together, or family member, like, yep, we'll put them in the senior position. Like, they are completely unqualified for this. They only have this position because you're buddy. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw some of that as well. It's really frustrating, and it's one of those scenarios where if you speak up, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're hurting yourself more.
Yep, exactly. So, all right. So then, once you had, we'll just say the death by the million paper cuts or the numerous paper cuts getting there, you kind of knew this wasn't sustainable. What was what were your steps? What was your plan of action to going from being a W-2 employee to, growing your real estate empire?
Yeah, so I just took a step back and I really thought to myself, I had been renting for, I don't know, 10 or 11 years. And I kind of thought to myself, if I could have four, five, six tenants like myself, it could possibly be a business and really start generating some revenue, meaning tenants that just went to work, paid their bills, and
Mm-hmm.
took care of their apartments, no drama. And my first purchase was a duplex to house hack. So I lived
Oh,
in one unit
nice.
and rented out the other unit. And it's again, it's kind of stereotypical or cliche to say, but it was the complete home run. I still have the property today. I don't live there, but it's a cornerstone of my portfolio. It'll spins off 1,000 cash right now. It'll spin off 1,100 next year. There's rent steps built in, and
Nice.
that was my first step. My first step was buying a 2 unit building, living in one of the units to minimize and decrease my living expenses, knowing that when I moved out, I was going to use it as a 2 unit rental and have that. I thought long term, and here we are 7 years later, and it's a great cash flowing property.
Nice. So, and I'll just do a little plug too. For those that know me, I'm also a realtor, and I'm still surprised at how many people don't know this. So I'll just pitch it out there. If you are a home buyer or wanting to purchase a home, there are programs out there you can put as little as 3.5%, 5% down. Freddie Fannie counts single family homes as up to fourplexes. So kind of just like Brandon did and numerous others. You can actually buy up to a fourplex, live in one unit, rent out the other three, start your real estate investing journey that way. And then just like you did, Brandon, move out, then rent all the units, and then just rinse and repeat after that. So I'm just continually amazed at how many people don't know that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I wish I would have known. I'm glad you said that because I wish I would have known about it earlier
Yeah.
and much, when I was younger. I'm glad I did it, but I didn't buy my first property until I was 33, 34.
Okay.
So imagine these people that could take advantage of this program at 25,
Yeah.
26, 27. They could be, their portfolio could grow so quickly by utilizing that strategy because, as you know, and I'm sure your listeners know, once you're in the property for a year, you can then leave and, like you said, rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
and here's another piece of it, and this is just facts coming from my experience. If you do it right, and let's say you renovate or clean up the units a little bit and you push the rents, you can tap equity in that
Mm-hmm.
property to then go use and invest, which is exactly what I did.
Yeah.
I pushed rents and it was a primary at that time. So I was able to uh, get a HELOC and then take that money to put towards my next investment.
Yeah, yeah, just yeah, velocity of money, and you're not losing equity per se. You're basically just transferring it from one property to another, and that's how you grow and expand your portfolio. So the
Yeah.
further, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't think this will be the last time we talk about house hacking during this discussion because it's just super valuable. It's super simple. And even if everything goes wrong, you still get to experience being a landlord, collecting rents, maintenance, all these valuable skills and tools that you can cut your teeth on a small scale.
Yep, exactly. And I even not quite to the extent of the duplex, but even our first home that we still live in today, one caveat we liked about is I had a living space, kitchen area, bathroom downstairs. Well, we rented the basement of our house for, trying to think now, 3.5, 4 years. That was just extra income that we had, and worked out great.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, garages, sheds, parking, you name it. There's all these strategies within house hacking that can decrease your monthly expenses or make you even more, profitable on that at that property.
Exactly. So from the time that you and maybe you can fill us in, what was or maybe back up a second. How long of a time was there from when you first bought your first rental in property investment to the time that you left your W-2 job? How long of a time was that?
Yeah, it was 4.5 years.
4.5 years.
So
Okay.
there was a large gap from when I purchased my first duplex, my first property, to then my next one. But once I got my second one, like you said, the velocity of money and I was rolling, I caught some momentum, a little bit of confidence, and I'm having more rents coming in, which allows me to stack some money towards the next down payment.
Yeah.
But it was under 5 years from first purchase to Financial Freedom Day. And by the way,
Nice.
did you coin that phrase, Financial Freedom Day? Have you patented that?
No,
Copyrighted it?
I don't think I coined it. I just came up with it because I mean, some people know exactly to the day. Some people I've interviewed, they kind of have a general idea. It's like I know mine was September 3rd, 2019, and I think I'll always remember that day.
Yeah, I have a funny story for you when we get to that. If that comes up when we talk about that, because I actually recorded myself leaving when I left my Financial Freedom Day. I recorded myself in my vehicle.
Nice. You got that on YouTube or what?
I haven't posted it anywhere yet. It's funny because I'm really overweight. I look really unhealthy, and I'm happy because this moment has come to fruition. But it's almost like I'm stammering, and it feels like a little surreal. But I have the clip of getting in my vehicle my last day, and then just kind of recording my thoughts and how I was feeling. So I
Yeah,
certainly
no.
know I certainly know what my day was. Yeah.
Yeah, so and you said that was December of 2019 that you left or
Yeah, December 23rd, 2019. So I'm coming up on 3 years financially free. And this is how bad it was or how ready I was to go. We got annual bonuses in March.
oh boy.
So I couldn't stick around, and they were pretty chunky. I had used them to invest in the past for down
Okay.
payments and whatnot. I couldn't hang on for another 10 weeks, 9 or 10 weeks. I was like, nope, this is it. I gotta
Wow.
go. I'm ready to go. I've strategized up to this point. So I left the bonus on the table and said, see you later.
Yeah. So, well, now that you've gotten to this point, I know we talked a little bit off camera. You and I are both are passionate about passive income and also having multiple diverse streams of passive income. Obviously, this flip that you're doing now is kind of more of a form of active income. But do you have any additional streams of income besides the long-term rentals?
Yeah, and I would say they're somewhat all within the real estate umbrella, but I do
Okay.
private lending. So
Ah,
I'll lend money to flippers, rehabbers, um, short term, typically 6 months, sometimes up to 12 months. And the strategy there is I keep a chunk of money and just continue to recycle
mm-hmm.
that chunk of capital.
Yeah.
And it's done well. And um, yeah, it's a pretty straightforward strategy. I mean, if your listeners, understand, there's typically, I mean, I'm not going to get into my terms, but there's typically some
No,
points
no.
up front and then some healthy interest. And it's for investors, rehabbers, flippers who can't get conventional financing on a property
Mm,
or need to take a property down with cash, and their margins or profits are such that they can pay the points and the interest. So flipping occasionally, uh, the long term buy and hold rentals. I have one property that I'm going to be Airbnbing, which
mm.
I know you can speak to that strategy.
Just a
And
little. I just
then
have one.
right, and then the hard, I call it private lending, but it's essentially hard money lending. Those are really my only strategies within um, real estate investing.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and it was kind of interesting you brought that up, and I'm the same way. I actually do a lot of private lending in my self-directed retirement accounts. And at the time this recording hits the news of, well, gee, rates are going up. That's bad news. It's like, well, yeah, if you're borrowing, it could be, but if you're a lender, I mean, there's a lot of banks that are liking this higher interest rates. So,
Sure. Yeah, sure. I completely agree. It's an interesting perspective to take. And I should also mention, I guess, th- I have two. I'll also do owner finance
oh, sure, yep,
loans. So I'll act as the bank. I have two of those. And again, the strategy there is I'm acting as the bank. I'm taking the mortgage on a property typically that I have free and clear. Someone that can't really go get conventional financing or doesn't want to will put
mm,
money down and then um, will pay, the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance to me as I'm the bank. So the strategy there is you're collecting a healthy interest over the term of the mortgage.
yeah,
On all mine, they buy me out early or cash me out. There's no penalties or anything like that. But in a perfect world, they carry the entire term, and the
sure.
interest is just it's astronomical when the compounded interest. But again, kind of a form of all the things we're talking about with
Right.
the
Yeah. It
real
all
estate
centers
umbrella.
around real estate, whether it's hard money lending, long term, short term rentals, or yeah, seller back financing. So, but now as we're recording this, we're getting close to 3 years of at least hopefully those million paper cuts have healed or scarred over at this point. But looking back, just full picture. Any regrets or anything you do miss about your old W-2 job or wish that you still had?
Zero.
Daryl. Okay.
Yeah, I don't miss anything about the corporate world or my W-2 job. And I will tell you, I was very strategic and conservative in my approach, meaning not only was I slowly building a rental portfolio that brought in cash flow to replace my W-2 income, I was very deliberate on paying down and paying off debt. So
Okay.
I wanted to not only increase my monthly cash flow from the rentals, I wanted to decrease and really eliminate my monthly living expenses,
Yeah.
just to make the transition that much easier. So again, I was very strategic and I knew all my numbers. So I would encourage I would encourage people that like if you get to a certain point, like you need to take the leap and do it. But doing it without kind of a plan or cash flow sort of already in place feels a bit risky, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't miss anything, man. The 8 million emails, the conference calls every Monday. I would lead a conference call like every other Monday, and it was just brutal. The preparation,
Yeah.
it was like a cloud that hung over my head all weekend, and I don't miss any of that stuff, man.
Awesome. So on the flip side, and I mean, you've kind of already alluded to this, but what's been the best thing about your journey in those 3 years since you left the corporate job?
So I feel like I'm still early on the financial freedom journey, so I'm still kind of enjoying all the cliche things. So
Ah,
it's certainly the flexibility and the freedom. It's the travel. I don't have to ask someone off for vacation.
yep.
I can just go on a vacation. I can just do what I want. Speaking of, I'm going to be avoiding Pennsylvania winter this year. I'm just going to be traveling for 2 months in warmer climates so I can just miss the snow, the sleet, and the ice.
Nice.
Um, I would say that's like the immediate gratifying thing about being financially free and working for yourself is just the flexibility and the freedom. Where I say the second level or the second layer comes in and really makes it impactful is you now have all this time. Well, you now have more time to plug into the things you choose.
Mm,
So, is that starting a podcast? Is that growing your business? Is that scaling your business? Is that starting a nonprofit? Is that simple things like I just have time to read? I can clear my mind and read books now. It's like a beautiful thing. It sounds so
yep.
simple, but it's one thing to say, okay, I can leave this corporate hustle, but now, what are you going to do with the time that you freed up? How are you going to plug that in? And I'm still working with that, I'm still fine tuning and what that looks how it is my time. But it makes managing my portfolio and these flips and some of the lending that much easier because my time is mine to choose how I spend it.
Yeah, yeah, and I can definitely attest to that. It's kind of funny as I look fast forward 3 years, and obviously, podcast and as a realtor, and of course as a father to an infant, and it's kind of the point. It's like, gee, how did I have 40 hours a week to have a job at the point at one point?
Yeah, I can't imagine raising kids, man. I don't have any children of my own, but yeah, you're juggling a lot of balls, and it's I'm sure you and most people would make it work, but you're like, yeah, how is this gonna shake out? How are you gonna be an investor, a parent, a 40-hour W-2 employee,
Yeah,
and a realtor? It's yeah.
yeah. So, and like you said, just pick and choose and have the freedom to choose what you want to spend your time on. So, but so as we looking back, and I mean I can kind of give my 2 cents as well, but for any listeners out there, maybe they're on paper cut, 695,000 and waiting for the other 300,000 to take effect, or they are dealing with incompetent upper management, et cetera, but they just for whatever reason they feel stuck or maybe even have golden handcuffs, so to speak, with their job.
Mhm,
What would be
mhm.
your advice to them of just how to get out and pursue a different life, basically?
Yeah, golden handcuffs is really a real thing, and I don't think it gets talked about enough with high
Hmm.
income earners that can't leave that are kind of still living check to check. That's just crazy. For
Hmm.
me, I'm going to speak specifically to real estate because that's what I know and that's what I do. And um, regardless of your age, if you want to get in, if you want to get started in investing in real estate, I would strongly suggest the house hacking strategy that we talked about. One, whatever, 2 to 4 units, you can low money down and live in it for a year. If that doesn't work, or you're like older, you have family, I would save up for a down payment on conventional financing for an investment or secondary property. And I would look at affordable markets, that cash flow. If they're not in your backyard, you can have property management on the house. And I know you've done something similar to this.
Hmm.
I would say get started by getting and again, I'm a fan of small multifamily. So just because you're not living in one of the units doesn't mean you can't get a 2, 3, or 4 unit property because it's still going to be considered a conventional loan if it's under 5 units, even if you
Right.
don't live in it. So I think getting your first property, getting your feet wet, seeing what it's all about, even if it's not in your backyard, I think that's the first step as far as real estate investing goes that you should start. And if you like it and it goes well, then you can replicate that process and start to snowball your rental income, your cash flow,
Hmm.
and pay down debt much quicker. I know I'm jumping ahead here,
No, no,
but
that's fine.
I think house hacking is the best first step that anyone can take. If it's not practical, I would say get a 2 to 4 unit building on long-term conventional financing
Yeah,
and cash flow it.
exactly. No, it makes sense. And yeah, kind of like you said, I wish I knew these things back in 2006 when I bought my first primary home, and obviously still living in it and ran the basement, but definitely could have been a more lucrative investment if I had known what I know now. So, but so as we're
Yeah, I
wrapping this,
completely agree.
sorry, what was that?
I agree. You learn from experience. So these are things that we weren't taught. We learned by doing deals and getting involved in the market.
Yeah, sounds good. So as we're wrapping this up, Brandon, and again, want to take thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to educate my listeners on your journey. As we're in the heading into 2023 full blast, what's your what's next on your docket? Any new projects or things you're looking forward to working on the new year?
Yeah, so I'm renovating a 2 unit building right now that I bought in Central PA here. The first floor was an old dive bar. It didn't come with a liquor license or anything, but upstairs is going to be an apartment, which we're finishing now. And then the first floor, I framed out a room that may be a barber shop, CPA, nail salon, although I think that gets a little funky with um, the filtering of the air and whatnot.
Oh,
So
sure.
the first floor does have a commercial aspect, and then there's a lounge area and whatnot. So I'm still kind of doing the same things I've been doing. I'm buying and renovating small multifamily or small mixed use buildings that in theory will generate more rent than just a single.
Okay.
And I'm also going to probably pivot into some Section 8 stuff in 2023.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, so without diving too far deep into that, I think Section 8 is a slept-on program and kind of has a stigma, but if you do it the right way and you put good tenants in, it can really, really be foolproof cash flow. And speaking from my area, you can get stronger and better rents in the Section 8 program backed by the federal government
Right.
um, than if you're just in the traditional rental market. So for me, more of the same. Um, Buying buildings that need some love that have been neglected, not full gut jobs, and I don't want to take down any full rehab flips. I just want to make small apartment buildings nicer, cleaner, more modern, push the rents and cash flow. It's the same strategy I've utilized. It works for me, and they're not all grand slams, but the doubles continue to produce.
Yeah. Or as like you like with your company, it could be a triple play for triple play properties. So
There it is. Yeah, triple play properties. I appreciate that. I'm working on we have we have some merch. I feel like I spend a lot of time designing t-shirts and hoodies that never come to fruition.
well, maybe that could be the
But
another job for 2023. So
yeah, there you go. But yeah, more of the same for me. I do want to get involved more in the Section 8 market, specifically here locally. I think it's a strong program, again, backed by the federal government. And um, my primary strategy continues to be long-term rentals,
okay.
apartments, multifamily buildings, and I have some single families as well, but that is my strategy and I'm sticking to it.
All right. Sounds good. Well, I appreciate your time again with us, Brandon. Hope the sale that you got in contract for this for 20K above ask price goes well. And best of luck to you in 2023 here.
Great, John. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
You bet.